Good morning everyone, today we're going to be talking about the Photon Arts customization specifically for the Katana. But before we jump into all of that, if you're new to the channel, I upload NGS content daily, so if you do play this game, I would really appreciate a subscribe as it really helps out the channel. Anyway, without further ado, let's begin the video. So the very first thing I want to showcase is where do you actually customize your Photon Arts or your techniques, and it's actually through the class counter. When you interact with the class counter, you're going to see right here Tech Arts Customization. You're going to click on this and there is a drop down menu over here with all of the different classes. So in today's video, we're just going to be talking about Lotus Lightning for the Katana because this is the only Photon Art for Katanas that you can modify. So when we click Activate Tech Art Customizations and under Lotus Lightning, you're going to see there's Type 1, Type 2, and Type 3. And this is the same with every single Photon Art as well as every single technique. There are 3 different choices for you to pick. However, the choices are going to be different depending on what Photon Art or what technique it is. So for example, Lotus Lightning, Type 2 over here increases my attack speed, and Type 3 just increases raw potency overall. When I come over to Dimensional Ray, which is the bow Photon Art, you can see Type 2 just increases the attack duration when uncharged, and Type 3 over here increases the arrow stock when charged. It's different for every single Photon Art, so you just need to keep that in mind. But in today's video, we're just going to be focusing on Lotus Lightning Type 1, Type 2, as well as Type 3, since these are the ones that I have tested. So what does Type 1 do? Relatively simple, it just increases your attack range. However, it increases it pretty drastically. So as you guys can see in the B-roll, this is how much damage I deal using Type 1 as my customized TA, and it deals 9,753 damage. However, let's move on to Type 2 over here, and this one increases your attack speed during Brave Combat. However, there is a Photon Art potency minus 5%. However, it also increases the number of final bonus hits by 300%, and you can see over here that the PP cost is plus 14 instead of the regular plus 20. However, the reason for this is because this is level 3 at the moment while my other skills are level 1. When this is level 1, its PP cost is also plus 20%, and it gets lower the higher the level it is. So when I click on this, and you can see when I get it all the way to plus 10, it will only increase the PP cost by 5%. And this applies to all 3 types for the Katana over here. So for example, Type 1 would just increase the attack range. At level 10, it's also increased PP cost by 5% instead of 20%. And when we look over here at Type 3, again at level 10, it's the exact same thing, PP cost plus 5%. So the next thing I want to showcase right now in the current B-roll that you're watching is another 20-second DPS check. However, we are using Type 2. And you can see that our DPS increased drastically. We went from 9,700 to 10,500. So this was a DPS increase. So if you only hear about damage, Type 2 seems to be winning. However, since I want to be thorough with my testing, of course I had to test Type 3 as well. Type 3 is a little bit unique in the sense that it increases your potency, but only for your first stage and second stage of Lotus Lightning. For those who don't know, Lotus Lightning actually has 3 different stages of damage. When you cast it the first time, it'll do a little bit of damage, very mediocre. The second charge of Lotus Lightning will deal slightly more, and the third charge is going to deal the most amount of damage. And so what Type 3 does over here is it equalizes the damage a little bit more between all 3 charges, because it increases the damage of the first charge by 10% as well as the second charge by 5%. However, it doesn't increase the damage for the third charge simply because the third charge already deals a significant amount of damage. However, this begs the question on whether Type 3 is better or Type 2 is better, which one actually gives you more damage. And as you can see right here, here is another 20-second DPS check using Type 3, and you can see the end result was 10,154 versus Type 2, which was 10,500. So the damage difference between Type 2 as well as Type 3 is very small. We're talking about 400 DPS difference. That is almost nothing. Now for those who are wondering how I conducted these tests, I did use a Vershmel Katana. The reason for this is because it does have a 100% crit rate, so there is no variables. Basically, you're dealing the same damage every single time because that's how critical hits are, and that way I was able to objectively compare Type 1, Type 2, and Type 3. However, something that I cannot objectively test is each player's use case. So Type 1 doesn't seem to be very good because it simply increases your attack range and doesn't increase your damage. However, something that a lot of people are kind of sleeping on is even though it increases your attack range, it allows you to hit multiple targets at once. As you can see right here, I'm hitting both of the training dummies. Even though the DPS meter doesn't reflect it because it only counts the first dummy that I'm hitting, but you can clearly see damage numbers on the second second dummy that I'm hitting as well. So even though it only says I deal about 9,000 damage, you need to multiply that by 2 because you're hitting 2 targets at the same amount of damage. Now I'm sure some of you guys want to see a real life use case scenario for this, and here is a veteran. So this veteran is really annoying because you need to break all his legs in order for him to expose his weak spot, but if you use the type 1 for Lotus Lightning, you actually can hit multiple legs at once with each Lotus Lightning. As you can see in the B-roll right now, I'm actually hitting 2 to 3 different legs or different parts at the same time. So even though the DPS on a single target or the raw number doesn't look that big, but in specific use cases, this attack range is actually pretty helpful because you're hitting multiple parts. Now I did test this in Darkfall Solus. Unfortunately, it did not work, which is why I scrapped the B-roll because there was nothing to show you there. But I'm pretty sure maybe if you did enough testing to get like the right angles, it might be possible to hit multiple parts. But in my initial testing, I was not able to do that with Darkfall Solus. Now the next subjective point I need to talk about is type 2 over here, number of final bonus hits plus 300%. When I initially read this, I thought, oh, my Katana combat is going to deal 300% more damage. This is not the case. What that 300% actually does is increase Brave Combat final bonus. And if we read over here, when Brave Combat ends, you recover a certain amount of HP and PP according to your hit count while this skill was active. And you can heal up to 30% of your HP as well as 100% of your PP. That is what that 300% allows you to do. It simply allows you to accumulate these hits a lot faster so that you can heal the full amount a lot quicker. However, the thing is that doesn't translate into more damage. It's just giving you the ability to recover your health as well as your photon power when you end Brave Combat. That's all it does. It doesn't affect damage at all. As you can see in the B-roll right now, this is with Tech Art Type 2 and this is without Tech Arts. And you can see when I use the Brave Combat finisher, the damage numbers are exactly the same. So at the end of the day, which type is the best for you? It really depends on your personal playstyle. However, personally, I am still leaning towards type 2 simply because of this attack speed. As you can see in the B-roll right now, when I do have this extra attack speed, I can do 15 rotations of Lotus Lightning. When I do not have this, I can only do 12 rotations of Lotus Lightning. So you are getting an additional 3 rotations of Lotus Lightning. Keep in mind, Lotus Lightning hits 7 times. So that means I'm getting an extra 21 hits on the enemy just because I am using type 2, which is really useful, especially against bosses if you guys have a ranger, because your ranger is going to put a blight round. In order to convert that blight round into a purple blight round, which gives you even more damage, it's counted by the number of hits. So getting an extra 21 hits is going to convert that red blight round into a purple one a lot quicker, and that's why I put so much value into type 2. I just like being able to attack faster and pump out a little bit more damage. However, as we saw earlier, the difference between type 2 and type 3 is very small. We're talking about 400 damage. So if you aren't really into the whole attack speed and you don't really like rotating with Brave Combat and using it as your burst ability, then type 3 isn't a bad choice either, simply because type 3 has no conditions at all. In order to get the attack speed with type 2, you have to use Brave Combat, which means all of your burst is going to revolve around Brave Combat, and when Brave Combat is down, you're just going to be dealing the same damage. Versus type 3, there's no conditions to this. You're always going to get this extra 10% potency on your first stage of Lotus Lightning and 5% potency on your second stage of Lotus Lightning. And last but not least, who should use type 1? Honestly, I think type 1 is kind of a gimmick. I would only use this against like veterans, or if I'm farming like non-boss enemies basically, then type 1 might have a use case. Against PSC bursts, I think this would be really awesome, simply because this allows you to hit all of your targets in a straight line. It would be really good against small mobs as well as medium-sized mobs. Basically anything that isn't a boss, I think type 1 is pretty nice to have. But for me personally, I prefer type 2 simply because I really like having the extra attack speed, especially against Darkfall's Aegis, where you don't really have that much time to deal a ton of damage. Having the extra attack speed just allows you to dump all that damage really quickly and be a little bit more front-loaded when it comes to unloading DPS.
Special thanks to all the members for supporting the channel. It really means a lot to me. Thank you again.
But yeah, that's all I wanted to cover in today's video. Hopefully you guys found it helpful. If you did, I would appreciate a like and a subscribe, and I'll see you guys in tomorrow's video. Bye!